4 years after the signing of the Colombian Peace Agreement, implementation continues to advance with a focus on achieving medium and long-term goals. In the midst of great challenges, both implementing parties and the general public are playing an increasingly active role in its implementation. This is highlighted by the Kroc Institute in its 5th comprehensive report, The Colombian Final Agreement in the Era of COVID-19, Institutional and Citizen Ownership is Key to Implementation. This report analyzes the period between December 2019 and November 2020 through a quantitative and qualitative outline of the implementation of provisions within the text of the agreement. Most of the short-term commitments were completed in the first 2 years of implementation. During the 3rd and 4th years, efforts have focused on promoting institutional coordination to advance participatory planning processes and to guarantee implementation at the territorial level. In 2020, implementation faced 2 major challenges. First, the persistence of insecurity in numerous territories of the country, continuing attacks against people in the process of reincorporation, and an increase in homicides against human rights defenders and social and environmental leaders. Second, the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic led to restrictions on mobility and heightened inequality and vulnerability in the territories, even while illustrating the resilience of these same communities. 4 years after the signing of the agreement, the data shows that implementation status saw the following changes. Full provisions moved from 26% to 28%. Provisions in the intermediate phase increased from 16% to 18%. Provisions in the minimum phase remained at 35%, and uninitiated provisions were reduced from 24% to 19%. Point 1 and Point 5 saw the highest percentage of provisions whose implementation began during this period, while Point 4 completed the most provisions. For the 3rd consecutive year, the greatest delays were observed in Point 2, as well as in the regulatory adjustments necessary for implementation of the agreement. The report highlights numerous actors at the local, national, and international levels that have taken ownership of the commitments within the agreement and have promoted implementation to overcome the causes prolonging armed confrontations. In 2020, new territory administrations incorporated commitments from the agreement into their municipal and departmental development plans, especially in PD regions. Similarly, judicial authorities have illustrated that the judiciary can be decisive in implementation of the agreement. The report also highlights that implementing entities focus on actions aimed at meeting the goals of the framework plan for implementation. As in previous years, the international verification component and the international community made important contributions to implementation of the agreement's commitments. In its review of the cross-cutting approaches, the report outlines efforts to keep the ethnic and gender foci active, even though the pace of implementation of provisions within these approaches still remains slower than the pace of general implementation. The report also includes an international comparative analysis. This section highlights the work of the Special Jurisdiction for Peace that has carried out the amnesty's resolution process at a faster speed than other countries implementing a similar process. The 7 macro cases opened by this jurisdiction are progressing at the average rate for similar cases in other countries implementing comprehensive peace agreements. In order to advance implementation, it is important to guarantee resources for the implementation of the agreement's commitments in the departmental and municipal development plans, and to affirm the territorial peace and reconciliation councils as the authority for dialogue and building consensus. It is also vital to focus efforts on meeting the goals within the framework plan for implementation that should be completed in 2021. During this period, there were still gaps in the issuance of the legal framework necessary to comply with provisions in the final agreement. It is urgent to build and execute a legal implementation agenda. Successful fulfillment of the agreement will require that the ambitious structural and institutional reforms are accompanied by transformations that are felt at the individual and community levels. In accordance with its mandate, the Kroc Institute continues to monitor implementation, accompanying and supporting the people, institutions, and organizations committed to ending conflict and building a stable and lasting peace in Colombia.